there. Her brother Bart and I graduated from high school together, and Dawn and my brother went to school together. So Dawn made her way back to Chico. She reached out to me about March. Yeah, right around March or April, and she was experiencing some chronic health issues, and we talked online, and she dove right in, and I'm going to let her tell the rest, but I got a nice little thank you gift for you, so don't forget to take that. And I'm really excited that you're here, and it makes me so happy. Thank you. That potatoes are making you so healthy. All right, Dawn Panic, people.
When I first started the plant-based, I was on probably like 30 medications, and I'm only 50. And my blood pressure was high, my respirations were high, my cholesterol was off the top, and I love meat, I love milk, I loved all that. When I started this, I told Nancy, I don't think I can do this, you know, I love meat, I love milk a lot. I mean, I drink tons of milk, love it, love it, love it. Not anymore. So, I had 3 major back surgeries, lower back surgery, had the numbness, like the gentleman was talking on the video, down the leg, real bad back. So they put me on, I had 3 surgeries, they had me on Oxycontin, they had me on Narco, they had me on Soma, they had me on Flexeril, they had me on some heavy duty meds, and I was in a fog all the time. Wasn't myself. My family even was just like, you know, you're a druggie, you're a doper, you know, and so I decided to do something about it. And I used to take about 180 narcos a month. I get 60 a month now, and I'm lucky if I take one every day even now. I break them in half if I really need one. But otherwise, I don't take the Oxycontin anymore. I don't take the Soma anymore. I don't take the Flexeril anymore. I don't take the cholesterol medication I got off of. I got off of all this stuff in 3 to 4 months. Just for my days.
I think your pocketbook's a little bit healthier too.
Yeah. And I was getting tired of filling the stupid pill containers. You know, I'd sit there and my roommate would look at me and just go, oh my God. And I would put them in my hand, just take them home. You know, and he was just like, wow, you know, you need to get off this medication. It's really messing with your head too. I mean, it was messing with me physically, mentally, everything. And it took a little bit to get off of it, but gosh, after I got off every med, I just started feeling better and better. And with the plant-based, just getting those toxins out of my body, I even had a point where I couldn't keep my legs still. You know, I called Nancy. I was like, what do I do? You know, and she gave me some advice, you know, on different plant-based things like cilantro. I didn't even know cilantro helped with that. And it helps great with it. I got off of my blood pressure when I very first started was 178 over 92. That's not a good blood pressure. The second month I went, it went to 164 over 84, just doing the plant-based diet and getting off meds gradually each day, each visit, each month. I would tell my doctor, you know, and the doctor that had put me on all these meds ended up retiring. So I ended up getting a new doctor. And he looked at my meds and he couldn't believe all the meds I was on. And I said, well, I don't want to take all these meds. And he goes, well, let's start working on this. And I told him about the plant-based. And he was familiar with it. And he really stood behind me. And then about 3 months later, I went in and I'd lost like 20 pounds. And he was like, keep it up. He really, you know, encouraged me to keep doing what I was doing. Whatever I was doing was great. Just keep doing it. And every time I go in and stand on that scale, before I used to just go, oh, I don't even want to look. And now I'm like, how many pounds did I lose? You know, it's like exciting to me now when I do stand on the scale.
Oh, and I'm messaging her when she's at the doctor. Tell me,
Yeah.
tell me.
So I ended up now, this last month, my blood pressure is 110/64. My respirations went from 122 to 74.
What was that?
122
But
of
what was it?
respirations.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, and I'm a hyper person, but not that hyper. So it really did change a lot for me as far as I got off half my breathing medications also, because I'm walking 3 times a day now. I have a dog and I walk my dog. We go 3 times a day. We go in the morning, afternoon, and evening. In the summer, it was morning, afternoon, and about 3 in the morning. But, you know, it works for us. You know, I love it. My dog loves it because she's young. So, all I can say is stick to it. It helps. You know, get your meds down. I mean, I take 5 meds now. So, and I'm working on getting off my thyroid medication. My thyroid's even coming down to where he's happy with the levels of that even, that I won't have to take my thyroid anymore, which is amazing.
I got off mine.
Yeah, I mean, and when I first started taking the thyroid medication, they were saying it wasn't even working, that I might have to have surgery. Now I don't have to.
And how many pounds have you lost, Dawn?
35, I think now.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, about 35.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I still want to lose about 30 more.
That's awesome. Does anybody have any questions for Dawn?
And when did you start, Dawn?
In March. Yeah. So it's been, and I have to admit, with my roommate, you know, he at first, you know, he eats meat, he drinks milk, he drinks tons of milk. There's always milk in the fridge. There's always those things that test me. And in the summertime, I had him eating plant-based. He was eating the salads and stuff, and he was liking it. And I told him, you know, you really need to change your diet. When he's all, oh, you know, walking around, and I'm 10 years older than he is. So,
That's awesome.
yeah.
That's awesome.
So yes.
Well, continue, I didn't mean
But I really appreciate that, you know, I had saw Nancy, you know, working on this, and it's changed my life a lot. I'm really happy. My brother also is on plant-based, and my mother and father are going to be watching the video. They're interested. My mom takes a ton of pills, and they want to also be in that healthy realm with us.
Yeah.
So.
That's awesome. Congratulations. Well, that's the power of plants, everybody. Thanks, Dawn. Like, where are you? I'm so happy for you. And that's how leading by example. You know, her brother now is changing his health destiny. And one of the things I really liked about the movie that we watched was the age group. You have little young kids in their teens, and even infants. Even my grandson, he's 3.5 years old. But studies have proven and shown that children can begin to have heart disease as early as 5 years of age. So everything that we put in our mouths affects us, no matter of our age. And you're never too old to change your health destiny. So we have people that are in their 60s and 70s that are getting off of their medications. They're changing the future of their health. You don't have to be a slave to pills. You don't have to spend your hard-earned money on co-payments and live an isolated life in a wheelchair or in your home. And as soon as you start this diet and you start, you know, finding that groove, that health groove, people are going to notice. People are going to say, "What are you doing?" And you tell them, and they're like, "Oh, I don't know if I can do that." Well, 2 friends of ours that are in Portland, they're like, you know, making Nancy look. They eat bark. They're just, you know, they love it too. Well, guess what? They called me now, and they're ready to see what this is all about. They're ready to start a whole new plant-based lifestyle. They're 60 years old now, and they're living on a whole lot of pills. They're on Crestor, and they're on got the cholesterol one, and blood pressure, and all of them, and they're ready to be done with it and the side effects. So you're never too old, you're never too young, you just need to start. Our next guest speaker is Brian Kramer. Brian is local. He was born and raised in Capay, right? Capay, our little neighboring community to the west. Brian was diagnosed with a rare form of leukemia, and through a plant-based lifestyle has kicked that cancer to the curb. So let's hear how Brian.
So, I, as Nancy said, grew up in Capay and was raised for the first 10 years on a cow dairy farm. And so we drank a lot of milk, ate a lot of meat, raised our own steers. I grew up pretty typically for this area. And so anyway, things just were going along what I thought were normal, natural things happening. And then about 7-8 years ago at Chico State, I went to see the doctor for some just normal thing. And she said, you know, your white blood cell count's a little low. It's probably nothing, but let's keep track of it. So I said, okay. So she did it again 3 months later and 6 months later. And for a few years, we were just following it. And it was never so serious that I had to go to an oncologist or anybody, you know, is like that. But it was something we were watching. And then with the Affordable Care Act, finally it was possible for me to go and see an expert. So we had already been following it for 3 years, something like that. And so I went up to see Dr. Maj in Paradise, and he did a bunch of tests, about $1,500 worth of tests. And he sat me down when the results had come in. One of the things before I tell you what happened was that the tests, they took all his blood, I mean, like 15 vials or something. It was just like, I couldn't believe it. I was just, can I give this much and still be fine? And, but when I left, the receptionist said, oh, here's a few more tests that the doctor wants you to get at a separate thing. And so I took it and I looked, and it was a big long list. And I thought, well, that's weird. I mean, he's really being thorough. So 2 weeks later, I went to the phlebotomist and gave it to the person, and they did another 12 to 15 vials. And it turned out that everything was repeated accidentally. And so they tested everything twice. So, and that's important, because when I sat down and the doctor looked at me and said, I'm sorry to tell you, but you have a rare form of leukemia, and it's called T-cell large granular lymphocyte leukemia. Now, the moment he said, you have a rare form of leukemia, just and I still feel emotional when I think about it, because anybody here who, and I'm sure in this size crowd, somebody's been diagnosed with some kind of cancer at some point in their lives and maybe have it still, but to be told that you have cancer, the first thing that went through my mind was just, you know, how can I have cancer? I'm 51 at the time. I'm 51 years old. I think of myself as a pretty healthy person. And I have cancer, and I have to go home and tell my parents. So anyway, I tried to listen to what he was saying, and so anyway, I'm going to backtrack just a minute, because even though I thought of myself as a healthy person, one of my favorite things to do anytime I was feeling even slightly depressed was to go to McDonald's and get the McChicken sandwich and the McDouble cheeseburger. So those two things, for whatever reason, just perked me up and made me happy. And they were like 99 cents a piece. So, and I also, because of I'm half Mexican, half German, and my mother had a lot more influence over what I ate than my father. And so we ate a lot of tacos and enchiladas and quesadillas especially. In fact, I've always joked that if I could live on one food, it would be quesadillas. I would just eat quesadillas all day, and I'd be happy. So I really love, and I can't say, like you said, that you don't care about milk anymore. I mean, the milk itself, I don't care about milk, but cheese, I would still, and I think to the day I die, I'm still going to look at it with certain desire. So, and I still look at meat that way too. So I don't know. Sorry, everybody, but I haven't really changed what I kind of want. I mean, to some extent, it's changed. It's got a lot easier. But okay, so back to being told I have leukemia. Okay, so I went home, told my parents. Of course, they're disappointed, they're sad, they're all those things. And I told them, and I told everyone else, I said, I think the reason that I was accidentally tested twice is because I'm going to beat this, and people are going to wonder whether it was accurate. And the reason I had to have it done twice, even though I didn't obviously choose for that, but I think something higher chose that, was I needed to prove that it was accurate the first time, which it came back the same both times. Which, by the way, this is my documentation of what was happening. I'm not somebody who just says, Doc, just tell me what to do and I'll do it. So I was a Chico State student. I had access to all the medical journals online. I immediately started researching this particular form of disease. I wrote a very professional paper, which I submitted to my doctor and asked him for his input. I found out who the researcher was that had identified this disorder, and I emailed him, and he emailed me back, and so we were in contact. I was asking him questions. I sent him my paper. I said, you have ideas about what I'm saying about my situation? I was just very active. But one of the big things that I really got serious about was diet. And I thought, I need to really do this. I had been flirting with different diets over the years. I mean, even high meat diets, because I thought it's pumping me up, you know, I'm getting muscular and I want as much protein because that's the story. And you know, it's so difficult to get past these stories. Even when I hear people talk still, I can just feel it. There's something inside of me that says, but meat is so doesn't it just say it makes you strong? You know, that's still in my head. It's maybe not in your head, but in my head, there's something about meat. And when I haven't been sick for like several years now, but at times where I felt even slightly sick and lethargic, the thought that goes through my mind is maybe I need some meat. You know, there's still this really strong story, in our mind. And it's very difficult to break that. And that whole milk does the body good, you know, that was one of the things I wrote down, is so false. But somebody years and years ago came up with that little saying.
Tagline.
Yeah, taught all our children. We taught our children. I'm a school teacher. I was a school teacher. And you just drill that in. And I don't know if the milk industry provided all those little things of milk for school kids, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if they actually subsidize that for children.
Yes, they do.
Do they?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, you know, the idea of putting that and gifting it even to every child is kind of like giving every child a cigarette.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, kids, this is how life should be, and we want you hooked. And okay, so anyway, so once I got serious about the vegan diet, there was a lot of other issues that were happening at the same time. I had high blood pressure, and a doctor had put me on high blood pressure medication. I only took it like 3 or 4 times, although immediately it dropped it down. I was like, wow, that was fast. But I just didn't want to get on that. My mother has been on it for years and years and years. So I immediately stopped that because it wasn't so high that I was in danger. and I knew with a vegan diet that chances are it would drop it down. I'd watched a lot of John McDougall and some of the others,
Esselstyn.
and I'm a YouTube guy. So I also had high cholesterol, and well, anyway, I'll get to that in a second. So within 3 months of this diet, Dr. Maj said, your blood counts are looking better already. Now, he didn't say that's because of the diet, but he just said, you know, do what you're doing, but it's looking better. 6 months it was looking really good, and by a year, it was back to what it used to look like 12 years before diagnosis at all.
So just switch to the diet, just cold turkey,
Just-
from
yeah.
everything else, and just went right to plant-based?
Yes, I got really, now if you were actually, you know, hold me down to everything I did along that way, no, it probably wasn't that pure. You know, especially when I'm with family, when we're get-togethers, Thanksgiving, Christmas, there's so many times where I have to measure in my mind, do I want to be the hero and save all these people by holding to my guns and
Yeah.
saying I'm not going to? Or do I want to not make waves, they all know I'm vegan, and just go along with it? I know it's not going to kill me. And usually I just go along because I don't want to be the issue at Thanksgiving. You know, and I don't want to sound like I'm the martyr and all of you are doing something bad, you know, whatever. But that is a constant weighing because you think, you know, I'm basically letting them just ruin their health. I mean, that's how I feel. And I don't have the, people change who want to change. I mean, basically people change. People who want to change are going to come after you and ask. They're going to be on YouTube, they're going to be researching it, and people who don't, it doesn't matter how much you tell them. So, and there's always exceptions to everything I say. So, within the year, things were looking great, and things continued to go well. And so I'm just going to quickly list all the things that changed. The blood pressure, of course, came down to normal. Although, man, I wish I had 116 over, over 110 over 64.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I don't think I'll ever have that because I don't think biologically I'm able to have that because everybody has some different set things. And if you have something that you take that you're convinced is really the thing that drops it even more, then let me know.
Okay, I will.
Yeah. Do you have a particular?
Just lots of walking.
Lots of walking, yeah.
That's what's done it for me is
Okay.
just the exercise, you know, just being diligent about it.
Okay. I've been a pretty uptight person since I was a child, and I think I was kind of born uptight a little bit. And this is my symbol of being not uptight. So I have those in my house, and oftentimes at night I just burn candles and I don't, you know, use electricity. I make my own beeswax candles, and so that's a real peaceful, it's something I've had to work at. People say, oh, he's so peaceful. Well, they don't know how much work this is. It's like a full-time job, just being peaceful. So anyway, okay, so the biggie, of course, that we're talking about right now is the leukemia. And so just about 3 months ago, my oncologist, Dr. Maj, said, Brian, this is our last meeting. And he didn't mean you're gonna die. No, he meant, I am 99% sure you will never get this again. And I said, could you repeat yourself, please?
Come again?
He said, I am 99% sure you will never get this again. He said, keep up your diet. You might even be preventing other kinds of cancer. So, and I know from all the study and everything, we are preventing other kinds of cancer. So that in itself is just such a big deal. The high blood pressure came down, the cholesterol came down to normal. I had had prostate pain discomfort since I was a teenager. That's completely gone. I have no idea the relationship, but it's gone. It could be somehow, I don't know, related to how people get prostate cancer. because I know that the studies show that prostate cancer can be reversed completely through a diet like this.
Yeah, we just learned that on the movie.
Yeah. Oh, and before I forget about the movie, I just wanted to say that in really small print at the beginning of the film, I think it said that 2,020 people a day die from heart-related diseases or something like that. I think that's like 4 or 5 747s. And if the news, had 5 747s crash today from heart-related diseases, and then the next day they said 5 more 747s crashed today from heart-related diseases, we're up to 10. And they kept adding
We
that.
need to do something about this.
You would, absolutely, but instead we're just following these little things comparably. And so this is a huge thing, and we, meaning the culture, have largely just grown dull to it because it's just normal.
Tuned it out.
Yeah, I tuned it out. Lots of our relatives are dying from heart-related diseases.
Yep.
I had told my primary physician I was having sore throats on and off a lot for maybe 3-4 years before the diagnosis. Well, it was before the diagnosis, 3 or 4 years. And never once did the thought come into either of our minds that it might be gastric reflux because of the meat. I'm certain, because once I quit eating meat, that I didn't have sore throats anymore. And the only thing that came to my mind was that I remember lying in bed and burping in the middle of the night and it burning. And so I'm just certain that that was gastric reflux. And I just don't get gastric reflux from plants.
Nope.
It seems like it's a whole different acid mixture or something. I used to get aphthous ulcers in my mouth since childhood. And all it took was just biting myself accidentally. And it would turn into a little white circle, and it would last for like 3 weeks, sometimes 4 weeks. It would be really painful. And it would often trigger 2 or 3 other ones. And it's a big deal. If anybody who's had them knows that they're a big deal, and they're really irritating. So I credit the diet, but I also credit switching to a non-fluoride and sulfate, sodium lauryl sulfate. So I don't use anything that has sodium lauryl sulfate in it anymore. That's the soapy part. They put it in here to make the toothpaste
Froth up.
And then the fluoride, from what I've researched, and again, this is a disclaimer, not because I'm afraid of being sued. You can sue me. There won't be anything that you'll get.
We might get your potatoes.
You could have the potatoes, exactly. But I'm doing this disclaimer because it really is true. It isn't my place, ultimately, to tell you what will solve your issues, because I don't really know what will solve yours. All I can tell you is my own story. And for me, when I switched to a no fluoride, and I did a lot of research, I rarely do anything without studying it, my teeth are just as fine as they've ever been. People always say, oh, your teeth are so white. I haven't whitened for years. I'm convinced that this diet contributes to white teeth. And I think what happens is that you're not discoloring them through whatever's in milk and meat, and our body just produces new enamel, I think. I don't know technically.
Well, meat and dairy are both very acidic. And so that's going to break down enamel, and that's going to cause tooth decay. And that's one of the things that I was just actually reading about is the improvement people have with their dental, not their hygiene, but their dental health is a plant-based diet.
Yes, for years and years, my hygienist would tell me kindly, but boy, you've got a lot of plaque buildup. And they'd scrape and scrape and scrape. And since I went vegan, my hygienist says, I hardly have anything to remove. She said, your teeth are so clean.
Do you drink coffee?
No, I don't.
Something that would stain teeth.
Yeah, coffee's supposed to be good for us, actually. And
As far as staining teeth.
No, as far as staining teeth, you know, if I were drinking coffee, like I was doing green tea for a while,
Mhm.
because I had read, and I think it's true, that it can fight cancer. It has something in it that's good to
Oh, so
fight
you
cancer.
drink green tea?
I was drinking green tea for a while, but it didn't seem to do anything to my teeth.
Mm.
And the other thing I do too is I chew this xylitol gum a lot.
What does that do?
And this is based on a cardiologist book that I read when I had the high blood pressure and so on. And the bacteria in our mouths have been found to infect our hearts. So the same bacteria that proliferate in your mouth goes through your bloodstream, especially if you have any kind of cavities or any openings or anything at all. That gets in your, and then infects the heart muscle and can cause a heart attack. So some people who don't have any other symptom other than just poor mouth health have heart attacks suddenly. And it's been added to the list now on dentists of what can cause, you know,
Sudden heart attack?
yeah, sudden heart attack.
Mhm.
So most dentists are telling their patients, you know, when you brush, you're preventing heart disease. And the other thing I did, I did this years ago though, was switch to an electric toothbrush, which I love electric toothbrushes. I would never use just a plain old toothbrush again. So anyway, this is available, and I'm not getting anything by selling it, but this is available through Amazon, and it's a xylitol flavored toothpaste. Or not toothpaste, but gum. Now, when I wake up in the middle of the night and my mouth feels kind of mealy, and it still does even though I'm vegan, I chew gum while I go use the bathroom. You know, gum just cleans my teeth quickly. I mean, within 2 minutes, my teeth are clean again. So I'm really onto this whole gum thing. I think it's great.
Do you think that would be any xylitol gum, or is that particular one special for any reason?
I think it's just flavored with xylitol.
So any xylitol gum?
I think so. I don't know for sure, but this was what was recommended by the cardiologist that I read. So anyway, no more fluoride. I did just buy a Berkey. Anybody who follows ChrisBeatCancer.com, that's a great site. And Chris fought cancer, and he's been cancer-free for years now. But he recommended a Berkey water filter, which I bought, and I'm so pleased with it. It was about $300, but I think it's
That's
worth
the
it.
2-tier, right?
It's two-tiered, and,
Yeah.
and it just goes on gravity. It doesn't.
Yep.
You don't have to hook it up, and it's
Yeah, those are
gonna
pretty
last
cool.
for like 10 years without changing the filters. Yes.
Is your singing better too?
Absolutely. I earn my living now from playing piano and singing. And so the thing I hadn't gotten to was that I had sinus problems too since childhood. And I just figured this was a family. My father had it, his father had it, all his brothers and sisters had it. Everybody in the Kramer family has sinus problems. And I can't say it's perfect, but I can say that I can breathe at night, which is amazing. I used to, you know, can't breathe at night. Now I lay down and I'm breathing fine. Again, I'm absolutely sure it's from this diet.
Were you ever heavy?
No, I was never heavy. I wish I was a little heavier, actually. Okay, so that's a list of the things that I have credited. I'm sure there's other things too. I want to say a little bit about this, the test for the cancer. So they found these cancer cells, which are considered clones. Just means that rather than die naturally, the cell somehow replicates itself and becomes this little factory and just starts belting out all these exact same clones of itself. So that's what they were looking for and what they found in me and why they diagnosed me with this form of cancer. So a year later, oh, by the way, this is not going to end happy where I say, and now there's none. Because we're not going to spend another $1,500 to prove, which might not actually be provable, because when they tested me 1 year after I was diagnosed, the rules changed. Now, the rules didn't change during that year. It's once you're a cancer patient, the numbers of cancer cells, at least with this particular type, okay, I'm just going to read this short little thing. It says the limit of detection for assigning clonality to a new sample, so that was me at the beginning, is 10% clonal T cells in a background of normal mononuclear cells. So mononuclear means single-celled cells. So if there were 10%, they say you meet the criteria for this cancer possibility. But any future test, the limit of detection for finding a previously identified and sequenced clonal population in a follow-up sample, so this is a year later, is 0.1% clonal cells, 1/100th as many. So if I met the 10% and now I'm considered a cancer patient, if I had had 9.5, I wouldn't be considered a cancer patient. But now, if I have just 1/100th of the amount, I'm still considered a cancer patient. So once you are identified as a cancer patient, you can't hardly escape it. So they just say you're in remission, you know. I don't think of myself as in remission because what I've learned is everybody has cancer cells flowing through their bodies and our bodies eat them up. And when your body isn't healthy enough to do that natural cleaning up thing, then it can get a foothold and start, you know, multiplying. The other thing about cancer is, you know, maybe this group may not have, you know, end up with cancer diagnoses in their whole lifetimes. I'm sure it's much, much less than meat and milk eaters. But if someone does, don't freak out because it usually takes years for cancer to develop. And you have years, honestly, most cancers, to turn that around. So if you're, you know, a halfway vegan or you know there's certain things you probably should have given up, that'll motivate you to go all the way. And then chances are you'll turn it around. So
That's exactly what Dr. McDougall says.
yeah. So I might even be quoting him. I don't know. I listen to him all the time.
Ryan, were you advised to go on any form of chemotherapy?
No, I was just told by another. I switched from Dr. Maj temporarily to another oncologist here in Chico just to be closer. And he said, you're watching weight and then eventually we'll have to choose your poison. So, ha ha ha. And, I mean, he's a nice person, but, you know, that was kind of a cavalier attitude from my point of view, you know, choose your poison. The theory of this particular disease is that these T cells are multiplying, they're producing clones, and that they start multiplying so many of them that they clog up the system with them, and then your neutrophils, which are really, really necessary in fighting bacteria and viruses and so on, neutrophils start going down and you just end up with neutropenia, which just means lower and lower neutrophil counts. So when I wrote to Dr. Logren, who's the guy who identified this disease and named it and all that, I said that after a year I was tested again and they didn't tell me what the percentage was this time. The first time they had told me. And he says it doesn't really matter the percentage. He says there's no relationship between how many of these bad T cells you have and the neutropenia. So I wrote back and I said, wait a minute, all these medical journal articles are saying that the higher the T cell blocks the neutrophils, et cetera, et cetera. He says, well, actually, there's not a relationship between the two. I said, well, what kind of a theory is that? You know, that doesn't make any sense at all. So he didn't write back. I mean, he wasn't mad or anything, I'm sure, but he didn't have an answer for it. So, you know, there's so many things that I don't know why people just offer their bodies over to doctors so often. You know, again, you follow your heart because some people have really great success and others don't. So, anyway, I think that this issue of 1/100th of the number is important to consider. So I don't think of myself as being in remission. I am just healthy me, and you know, I'm sure I've got something going through me, but my body's fighting it off, and that's it.
Well, you're giving yourself, your immune system, the fuel that it needs to combat anything that's going to be waging against you.
Yes.
So through your diet and lifestyle.
Yeah. Now, I hesitate to tell you this, but I'm going to say it anyway. Is that I just started a new thing, and believe me, do a lot of research on this before you do this one. But I'm doing cold training, so I'm going out and swimming in Sycamore Pool every day, and I'm up to 16 minutes.
What is
So-
cold training?
Cold training just means that I'm exposing myself to cold showers and cold water.
Why?
And because it's supposed to be good for your immune system and good for your body. And some people are finding success in fighting autoimmune diseases. And the theory is that our bodies are our immune systems are just ready for handling problems. But we've babied ourselves so much by the way that we keep our temperature precise, and we have all the kind of food we want and everything, that our immune system's like, there's nothing to do. And it attacks itself just to be useful, just in its own, that there's just nothing to.
It's bored.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously it's simple talk, but that's a theory, and for some reason these people that are doing this cold training seem to be doing a lot better. So I'm
Is
not.
there a Scandinavian man who's at the forefront of that?
Wim Hof,
I was
Wimhof.
gonna say, it sounds very Scandinavian.
He has broken 26 world records related to cold.
Wow.
He has learned how to keep his body temperature at 98.6 for, it was like an hour and 20 minutes in ice cold water. So he's shown that what they called the autonomic nervous system is no longer autonomic. You can control it. And they thought that it might just be Wim, but Wim has trained enough people now who have also been studied by professional researchers that all of them are being trained to do this.
We have so much to learn about the human body.
Yeah,
It's mind-blowing.
absolutely. I also have a year-round garden, which is really nice to have healthy food all the time.
You have like a greenhouse, or you
Just a regular
Just
out
regular.
backyard. Yeah. I'm skipping a couple things I'll come back to when I have more courage. I run barefoot, which I'm not suggesting either, but I would suggest flat shoes. Not that this is a flat shoe night, but I think it's better for you. My thought is constantly, what is nature? What's going on in nature? And I'm always imitating whatever's natural. And again, I read a lot. I read books about shoes. And the heels are not natural, and they put your whole body out of whack. And there are people who have a lot more back problems and neck problems and leg problems and foot problems because of heels.
Scott Jurek, if you've read his book, says that Nike ruined all of our feet.
Yeah. I always tell people, I run every day barefoot in the park. I've been doing this for 3.5 years too. Everything kind of changed when I got that diagnosis. And people say, why do you do that? I say, for the same reason your dog does it, and the squirrels do it, and every other creature on the planet other than humans. We weren't born with Nikes. Oh, I really believe in sunlight. Now this totally depends on race, ethnicity, and you have to follow your own gut in terms of what feels comfortable. But in my research, I found that there were at least 19 cancers associated with low vitamin D. And vitamin D is not really a vitamin, it's a hormone that your body produces based on sunlight. And, all this current hype about you gotta stay out of the sun, wear sunscreen all the time, just doesn't make any sense evolutionarily. It just should be obvious that somehow we adapted to exactly where we are because we were in the sun. I mean, certainly in the midday you go under a tree, but it just seems like the sun is good for you, and I think we kind of intuitively know it feels wonderful at the right times and amounts, and so just follow your gut. A couple doctors I have heard say be as naked as possible for 10 minutes to 40 minutes, depending on your race, and that they recommend it. It's good for you. So anyway, I've known that for a long time. I've been doing that a long time.
Dr. McDougall, I just watched his his interview with Gustavo Toloso, they were talking about breast cancer, and they talked about vitamin D, and 15 to 30 minutes, again, like you said, with ethnicity. But Dr. McDougall said the last thing he would ever do would be to take a vitamin D supplement. He said they're just garbage.
Yeah.
They're not regulated by the FDA. There's so many additives. He said just get out in the sun. He said his protocol and what he recommends is sunshine, 15 to 30 minutes, depending on your skin tone. The next thing he recommends is 15 minutes 3 times a week in a tanning bed. And yep.
Now
Yep.
that surprises me.
No, it's because it's UV. Yep. Dr. McDougall, Nick heard him say it too, right out of his mouth. And he's always said that. If you go back and read the beginning of Dr. McDougall's first books, he's always said that. And the very worst, the last thing he would do if he lived in the far north would be vitamin D, just because it's so poor quality.
So I would go with not taking the supplements, again, because nature
Yeah.
follows a pattern of, spring and summer and fall and winter. My guess is that we're going to find, if we haven't already found, that our bodies do something during the winter to allow that vitamin D to last through the winter. In other words, we've been doing this for thousands and thousands of years. Chances are we don't need that level of vitamin D during that season. And again, we've been doing this for a long time. So I personally, even if John McDougall said so.
Yeah. You don't want the orange glow?
I still don't think, because I read about tanning booths being really bad for us. So anyway, that's something I would give more thought to before doing that.
Well, actually, there's more to it, because people who have the what's called SAD,
Yes.
seasonal
Affective
disorder,
disorder.
and I have that, and so I didn't go last year, but year before last, it was just it was a bad year, and I went to the tanning bed about twice a week, and it makes such a big difference for people with SAD. And one of the ladies that works there, she said, mostly women get it, come in here crying.
Wow.
They're so depressed,
Wow.
and they'll leave 20 minutes later with a smile on their face.
Wow.
So the UV rays are important.
Well, I have that too, actually. I hibernate, and I also, the moment a sliver of sun comes through, I'm out laying out.
Oh, I love the sun.
So, I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
yeah. So, and that reminded me too, is because we all, I'm sure, taking B12 supplements, I personally think you should take at least 2 varieties. Because if you're trusting one variety to be absolutely what it says it is, I wouldn't do that. It just seems to me that we know enough about vitamins not always being exactly what they're advertised to be. And so if you take 2 or even flip it once, every 6 months to another variety, then you've got a much better chance of getting one that's really going to do for you
That's a good
what it
point.
should be doing for you. I don't know, maybe this was said in the film, but just one of the things, again, people ask me to kind of say why I'm vegan. And the two of the big things, besides my own experience, was just that nobody drinks milk past babyhood. That's just so obvious. There's just no creature that drinks milk past babyhood. Just remember that one. It's so logical, and nobody can really argue with it. And then they certainly don't cross species. That's crazy. So what seems so obvious now, didn't seem obvious then. Back before this. Also, the intestinal length ratio to body size. You have such a great memory, by the way. I wish I had the memory that you have.
A few years ago, it wasn't so good.
Yeah. So when people or professionals look at animals, the ones who have really long intestines relative to their body size are plant eaters, and the ones who have short intestines relative to their body size are carnivores.
Tigers, yeah, very short.
Yes, and so we have about 26 feet of intestines, so ours are matching the ones who are predominantly plant eating. Now even those, the chimpanzees and the gorillas and the apes and so on, if they find a termite hill, they'll go crazy. That's McDonald's for them. So even though that's technically an animal,
Getting their little dopamine rush.
they really, and once in a while they'll even attack another animal and eat it, but it's rare, so it's not normal. In terms of my own well-being, I also make my own laundry detergent. It's easy to do, and
Is that a class maybe that we could do sometime on?
if you
on,
want,
a
it's
little
so easy
how-to
though. It'd be a
demo?
lot easier for me to just send you an email.
Okay.
But
We can always post it in
I'll
Facebook.
tell, all it takes is Phil's naphtha bars, one bar if you make half. I make double now, so I don't have to do this so often, but 2 bars of Phil's naphtha, 2 cups of borax, and 2 cups of washing soda. And just mix it together and...
Do you put any essential oil in there for scent or anything?
No.
No?
You could. And I just live a very minimalist lifestyle. I got rid of all the chairs and tables in my house, so you sit on the floor when you're there.
Oh, wow.
It's very comfortable. I get up and down all the time, so I get plenty of exercise. I'm never laying around. And I choose to be a musician instead of a teacher. I could be a teacher. I've taught 2nd, 3rd, and 4th in public school. I still have my credential. I just paid another $102 to keep it going another 5 years. So someday I may have to, for financial reasons or whatever, but being a musician has paid the bills largely, and it's my way of staying peaceful and calm. Okay, I'm going to share a couple things. I hope this doesn't gross you out, but I'm going to tell you anyway. I think this has to do with being natural. When I lived in Mexico and I lived in Madero, I noticed that people went out into the nature and squatted to defecate. And I thought, that's interesting. So I just mentally thought about all the other animals, and they're all doing that. So I thought, you know what, that's really unnatural to sit on a toilet seat at that angle and blah, blah, blah. So I'm going to try that. So I'm not suggesting, especially if you're dizzy at all, but I for years have just stood on the seat, and they actually make something now that... And,
The squatty potty.
Yeah, and 8 million people, I guess we're all watching the same, nutritionfacts.org. But anyway, yeah, 8 million Americans are using it. So anyway, I've
Sold at Costco now.
Is really? Even at Costco? That's great. So anyway, if that's never crossed your mind and you have any constipation problems or anything, I suggest that. That's very helpful. It's very normal. Gravity.
And anatomically, it's the correct position.
It's the correct position. Absolutely. Okay, another thing related to toiletry is that, and I'm on film.
It's all
too.
about health. So
It's all about health.
It's all about learning.
I personally have found that it's better for me after defecating to just rinse myself off with a handheld shower thing. And before that, I always had itching issues. I've never had any problem ever since I started doing that several years ago.
Toilet paper has a lot of chemicals in
I
it.
hate toilet paper. It's
got a lot of-
just gross.
Well,
That's the way I look at it.
The
I
United
just think
States
it's
doesn't
gross.
have bidets,
That's true,
so
too.
it's
So I'm at
very
the point where I
European. We
actually
need to
think of
adopt
it
that
as,
practice.
I think of it as gross.
Yeah.
So, but I do if I'm in a restaurant or in your home. Toilet paper. Don't worry, I will not get in your shower or your bathtub. I will just be American. One last thing is I avoid anxiety-producing TV and noise pollution in general. I have been addicted to, until just a couple nights ago, who knows, I might go back to it, but Grey's Anatomy.
Oh, I haven't gone there yet.
I love Grey's Anatomy. I have been watching just, episode after episode after episode. Well, anyway, a couple nights ago when the hospital was exploding and a rapist was holding a knife to the intern's throat, and my body is shooting cortisol into me, and I'm having all these experiences like I'm
Living it.
And I thought, why am I doing this to myself? Why am I doing this? I don't want to live through that. I'm not living through that. That's not even real, which, by the way, I'm there going, this is not real, Brian. This is not real. I'm like a child assuring myself, it's make-believe, it's make-believe.
Well, with the quality of film nowadays, it's very realistic.
It's so realistic. And horror movies, I don't watch anything horror. Just all that stuff. There must be some reason it's addictive. I think it probably the adrenaline or something. There must be some reason why people do it. But I've gotten rid of it, and I just.
There's a new doctor show called The Good Doctor. You gotta see that one.
Oh, good.
It's really good.
It's autistic. Is that the one that I watched it and it made me nervous? It's very kind. I didn't watch it. No.
I liked it.
It made me nervous. Yes, and you know what? I work with some people and they said the same thing, and I started asking some of my customers when they came in, and they told me the same thing, that they couldn't watch it either. Because one of my friends drove through a school bus for 30+ years of autistic kids. I called her immediately, and she said, because she couldn't wait for the show to come on. She watched it again, and then she said, absolutely, I cannot watch it, I'm a wreck, I would watch it.
So
I thought it was great.
So being an elementary school teacher, I have to have my visual aids. So Kirkland organic peanut butter out of Costco, organic sweet potatoes. I eat mostly sweet potatoes. They're considered the best, but I also do all the other kind of potatoes. Organic red grapes, organic corn and peas. I just don't have the container here. Organic raisins. This is all at Trader Joe's, by the way. The walnuts are Trader Joe's organic. Chia seeds out at Costco. Blueberries. Oh my gosh, these are so good. Anti-cancer, anti-inflammatory. Everything that we're doing is anti-inflammatory. So wild blueberries, raspberries, and mixed berries. So,
Almond butter instead, I hate peanut butter.
what's that?
Almond butter?
Almond butter.
You know, I can't afford almond butter. Man, I would love to eat organic almond butter,
It's
but
so good. Farmer's market, it's not bad.
what is it, like $12.59 or
$4
$14?
or Trader Joe's.
Not organic.
Yes, it is.
Organic? Where's that?
Farmer's market.
Oh, at the
Saturday.
farmer's market, you get it for
Yeah.
a pound?
Well, you get small or large, you know.
What's it per pound?
I don't know.
Oh, see, that I always
Have
work
you
it
ever
out.
thought about just planting an almond tree? It only takes 3 years to make your own almonds.
Yeah, I wish.
Almond butter, I mean.
I wish. I just have to make some almond friends. So that's basically it. If anybody has any questions or thoughts they want to share, yes.
How many hours do you actually sleep?
You know, I'm not the best sleeper. I am really good at going back to sleep, but I sleep about 8 to,
Good.
I would say 8 to 10 hours. During the winter, like I said, I hibernate. During the winter, I usually sleep about 10 hours.
Wow.
And during the summer, more like 7 to 8. So I just follow the pattern of what I feel.
Did you notice any change in changing your diet in terms of your sleep need or?
Well, I definitely sleep better because my sinuses are clear. So I'm not having to fight my own breathing all night.
So did you go like cold turkey all at once, or did you still eat eggs, or, you know, did you? Once I was diagnosed with cancer, then I did everything. Everything.
But before that, for years, I had played around with this and go back and do this and go back, and each time I'd get a little bit farther to where I wanted to be. I mean, I knew where I should go, but
Well, like the movie said, you know, knowledge is power if it's applied.
yeah, and it's difficult to apply because
Honey at all?
there's something really, really delicious
Honey?
about all that
That's an animal
crap.
basis.
Honey?
You eat honey?
You know, I don't have a problem with honey. I don't eat honey because to me it's pretty sweet. It's too sweet for me, but I don't have any problem with honey. And even though it's against veganism, I don't really have a problem with taking the bee's honey.
Yep, it's just sugar.
Oil besides that?
No oil,
No?
absolutely not.
Nothing.
No, in fact, to me, this is another one of those obvious things. There's no canola oil tree out there. There's no
Right.
coconut oil tree. There's no olive oil tree. There's nothing. You take,
AJ says oil's for cars.
you know, again, it's taking it out of its context. And anytime you take something out of its context and you just concentrate it, it's
Remove the
usually
fiber.
not good for you. It's like an apple. The guy that said he's drunk thousands of gallons of orange juice, but he took it out of its context and now it's too acidic, it's too sweet, it's all kinds of things without the fiber and all the rest.
Yeah.
All right.